Committee Room 29. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly, Committee Room 29. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly, Committee Room.
Now invite the public into the gallery.
Have you got that?
Okay, and so in terms of apologies, I've received apologies from Michaela Boyle, John Dallett, Ross Hussey and Dahi McKay. Any other apologies?
No, not that we know.
Okay, so we'll go on to item agenda number 2, the minutes of the meeting on the 5th of February. Members, the minutes of the last meeting are at page 6 of your packs. If you're content, I'll sign them into the record.
Agreed.
Okay?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, item number 3 then, matters arising. Invitation to the Open University ceremony. At page 11 of your packs, you will find a copy of an invite that was discussed to the chairperson of the PAC to attend a degree ceremony for Open University on the 17th of May 2014.
Yep.
Just, are members content to note that?
Yep.
Okay.
Item number 1, Chair.
Okay.
On the minutes was the PSNI report.
Yeah.
Understand that there has been a request for us not to progress this today, as we thought we might be, on the basis that there's quite a few members not available. So I think we've agreed then that we will accept that.
Yeah, I think we should, but I think also we should, you know, that this has to be done next week.
Here, here.
Yeah. We are, if just for the record, we are quite happy to progress on the issue, and in fact, on the draft executive summary, we were quite okay with nearly everything that was on it. So it's only the executive summary we're dealing with. The rest of the report has been already through. So it's just a matter of us dealing with the executive summary and getting that passed. And there was seemed to be a consensus on 90% of it. So, you know, it definitely cannot run on any longer because it's losing all credibility. And this report, if it's delayed any longer, it will just be a historical report that is of no significance whatsoever and will not make any media impact either.
Yeah, and I think while members know that it'll be on next week, I think maybe a special email or a note out to people to make a special effort to attend next week, because this matter will just have to be dealt with next week.
Chairman, I agree with gentlemen's. We've been putting this off since last June.
Yeah.
And it's just bordering, it's not even bordering ridiculous anymore.
Yeah.
It's long surpassed ridiculous. And I think one of the things, and John Dallett reminds us regularly, and I think he's right, that it's good to try and get a consensus. But, I mean, I have to say, the actions of some people in terms of trying to get a consensus on this is just infuriating. Some people, I mean, some of us make an effort to come every week, and I appreciate today has been a bad weather last night. Some areas may be affected, but we haven't had bad weather every week. And if people want to get their shoulder behind this and get this piece of work done, because, I mean, I look here today and we talk about the waste of public money. We have at least one official here today in connection with the PSNI report. And that gentleman, whilst me and him didn't hit it off very well the first day we met, he's been here a number of weeks. And I mean, there is a cost to doing this piece of work, and there's a cost to bringing officials here week after a week when we can't get this piece of work done. And I think I think we're just going to turn this whole committee into a laughing stock. At this stage, I know agreeing with Sammy Wilson, some of the comments he's made about the PAC. This has become, this report is a waste. Because as I've said, there's officers here from the audit office every week trying to get this piece of work done, and we can't seem to manage to get it done. So I take your guidance, Chair, today that this is an assurance that this will be on the table next week. And I would suggest that if the clerk wants to get a feeling from the others, if there's still difficulties with it, we clear all the other business. We come into this room with this one piece of business and get it finished. Because after next week, I don't want to see, with the greatest respect, I don't want to see Neil sitting down in the public gallery again, unless he's coming to talk to us about a different report. But in this particular one, I mean, I don't want to see, I mean, I'm quite happy to see him in another report. But, so let's clear the diaries. Let's clear the workload. Let's get this piece done and get it finished with.
Yeah. Alex?
Yeah, just very quickly, next week this has to be dealt with, and whatever way, it is getting dealt with next week, regardless of whether people like it or not. So
Or people are here.
we want consensus, but if it's not, it's going through. Okay, thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, no, totally agree. Certainly in the run-up to today, as a party, we've taken the decision to deal with this finally today and to get it done and dusted, because we don't want to be sitting in this for too long. It's just unfortunate how today has panned out, and certainly I would be uncomfortable sitting on my own on this side dealing with this issue. So happy if we clear the schedule next week and that we agree to sign off on this report next week, and that it doesn't go into any more weeks.
Yeah. That's fine. It seems that it has to be really the first item on the agenda, and it's just not on the agenda next week. It has to be
Only
first
an
item.
item. Only an item.
Yeah. Well, maybe add some other things just in case we get, being optimistic and that we get through it within half an hour.
I like your style. But I wouldn't share your optimism.
Okay, Chair.
Yeah.
Right, okay. At page 7, you will find a summary of the judgment on the outcome of the High Court case involving the Chief Constable of the PSNI, which was brought forward by NIPSA and Vivian McCord. This was in relation to the Chief Constable of the PSNI's decision to enter a contractual arrangement with Resource NI regarding the employment of temporary staff. It is advised this document is read alongside the judgment, which was also included in your packs at pages 7 to 9.
Hang on.
Table paper packs.
Table.
Yes, Barry.
That's all I need. It's just a note.
The table ones, what was the table one?
Table pack.
No, I lost it.
Delivered.
Okay. Okay.
Are you content with that?
It's really only for our information.
That's all, yeah.
Yeah.
So even if we didn't agree with it, we're very little option to do something. So all I can say is we note it.
Yeah. Okay? Okay. So that takes us back to the FOI letter, the decals management of major capital projects. You'll remember last week that we discussed an FOI request that was sent to the committee regarding our inquiry into the decal management of major capital projects. The clerk has advised the committee that a draft response would be composed and placed before the committee for us to consider before it is issued. This draft response can be found in your table pack at page 3. That replaces the versions in your meeting folder.
Well, it did.
You're under something else.
Table pack, page 3.
This is matters.
No.
There's a response on page 14 of the original packs.
This is to replace that, because it was just, there was an amendment made, having consulted with the third party, which, you know, you should do as a matter of course, the FOI, which in this case was the audit office. Just there was a slight amendment made to it, that's all. So it's really the one in the table packs that you need
Can
to
you
be
tell
looking
us where the amendment was on it?
at. It was just in relation to information from the audit office.
It was paragraph 9, 11 and 12. It's a shorter response that just refers to particular paragraphs within the audit office's reports, as opposed to the longer response that was originally there.
It's the same information, but it's just cutting it down a bit, where
Can I ask the question in relation to, very promptly, this is the destruction of the documents. Is there not guidance given in relation to retention of that information?
Well, the point is, for the purpose of this committee responding, that's information that we don't actually hold. So we can only reply on the information that we hold. And it would be a matter for referring that to, you know, the department or the audit office. We could just put in there, please refer to, you know, the audit office or, you know, a signposting, if that's what you think would be better.
Yeah, it might well.
Do you think that would be helpful, Paul?
It would actually probably be the only thing that we could do in relation to that matter, but it's just, they've asked for, you know, detail of that, but I'm just wondering, is there guidance given about the retention of tender documents to, whether it be an arm's length body or whether it be a government department that has to retain tender documents? Is that part of their normal practice? Is there not guidance given? Maybe these should be kept for 6 years. We know even your own tax records, if your own details are held for 6 years, and you cannot dispose
Could
of them.
invite the Controller Auditor General to the table, maybe?
Yeah, of course there is guidance. I think the response is relevant here because as we get that guidance, it's going to be reviewed.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Any other members wish to comment? No.
Shall we clarify that?
Do we go ahead then to 13?
When we got on it?
And bring it back next year.
No.
Chairman, I certainly agreed last week, and I know I left early, but this seems to be a question and answer session between the person requesting the questions and obviously someone giving answers, but I thought we'd agreed just to refer them back to the full report with all the stuff that was in the public domain. Why are we bogging ourselves down? That was my mind that I was clear that, and I know I left early last week, but I was clear that we redirect them back to the report.
But
So why are we answering the questions?
maybe I can. My clear recollection of that matter was, yes, we had said to make reference to the report, but there were some questions which were asked which were not included
In the
that report,
Yeah.
and that we addressed those matters, such as number 13. Has the Lyric Theatre Management ever offered any hospitality or tickets to Public Accounts Committee? I have never been offered any. I don't know whether any other members have.
Sorry, just hold on. Sorry, cutting on you, Paul. I mean, if we're going to answer the questions, we're not talking about members, we're talking about the committee.
Well, that's true.
So, was the capacity of the committee, was the committee offered tickets?
Well, can I
So whether it was actually talked about
Yes or
individuals
no?
of the committee?
No.
Yes or no? So it's
No.
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 No, Alex?
Well, that's what I was wanting to clarify. I vaguely remember them sending me emails saying, do you want free tickets or something? Or,
Yeah.
but not,
But they haven't asked
but
you.
not to me as a committee,
Yeah, they haven't asked you.
but me as a person. But I never took them up anyway, 'cause
Bribery.
I wasn't interested. So,
It was as the committee, wasn't it?
no, just me as an individual, but that's,
Did other members receive the same?
Yeah, that's the committee.
Previously, I've received tickets from
It's an
Lyric,
individual's responsibility.
but that was before I was on this committee. I wasn't on the committee then, like.
yeah, well, neither was I, but I never took them
There's
up.
ways you're getting bogged down. Read the question, honestly. Just,
No.
So we're okay?
I don't think anyone was ever sent to the committee.
and another thing about that, and I mean, somebody's playing mischief in this, because the other thing is there's a difference between being offered something
I'm taking it.
and taking it, and there's also something, being offered something and asking for it. And I can assure you, I mean, if you want it in the record now, I've never asked them for anything.
You need
I have no intention of asking them for anything.
Michael?
I mean, we're trying to catch you down for you.
Exactly right.
I don't want nothing.
So would it be right to say?
Are you content with then this draft response here? Alex?
No, hold on. Right,
Yes.
right,
As
we're
it is,
okay.
yeah.
Just word no?
No, it's fine. Huh?
Okay.
No's in it.
Okay.
That is the answer, so.
Yeah, the committee have never
Yes,
been offered.
No.
No. Yeah.
The next one will come by asking us as individuals, and we can answer that when it comes.
Content.
So the deadline for this release is the 17th of February.
Yes.
Are you happy to go ahead with it being issued?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Item number 4, inquiry into the Fire and Rescue Service and organisational assessment and review of departmental oversight and report of the accounts 2011-2012, the MOR.
Did I take us away?
Alex?
Can I declare an interest and have to leave?
It's okay. Does any other member wish to express any interest in these matters?
Honestly.
Okay, thank you. Members, a copy of the MOR can be found at pages 18 to 26 of your packs. You want a few minutes to take a look through this?
Of this pack.
We're doing this.
Finished, that's it. That's it.
Gonna read you.
Just in case. Page of it. 18. Yeah. Okay, Fiona, you're very welcome. Of the 11 recommendations in the PAC mid to DHSSPS in a report, the Northern Ireland Fire Service there's 9 of these were accepted. We may wish to focus somewhat on asking you about the recommendations that were not accepted. Has anybody any general questions regarding the Department's response to the other recommendations before we go on to look at the ones that weren't accepted? Any member, any questions on the other ones, or do you want to go straight into number 9 and 11, isn't it?
Just, Chair, noting some of the, what I would call probably expanded answers in some of these, and yes, while the department are saying they accept them, if you read into some of the large responses, and I'm thinking of recommendation 10 there, you know, they're going a long way trying to justify their own position as well, you know.
See recommendation number 6, Fiona, there. When would the committee expect to receive that report?
Recommendation 6. DG confirm that their minister wrote to the chair of the PAC and the Health Committee with a copy of the report, so the committee should already have it.
Have they? Have you?
We did, we received it.
Did right, okay.
It's the 7th time we
Sorry?
That'll be possible in December time?
I just, the line from DHSS is that their minister has written.
Yeah, that was around December time we received it.
Can I ask on an ethical point in relation to recommendation 9, where they have not accepted the committee's directive about sponsorship, and appreciate that as we're dealing with the fire and rescue service here, and another wing of the same department's responsibility would be a major conflict if a major drugs company decided to be a sponsor of something which would ultimately encourage those who were prescribing that drug to deal with any of those sorts of conditions, that they would only use that type of drug. And I'm wondering, it is very much an ethical issue. How are they not accepting that?
Well, you're talking about drug sponsorship and...
No, I'm just trying to draw an analogy here, because we know exactly where this is coming from. That this was in relation to a contract with tyres, and how that ultimately ended up being classed as a Land Rover that existed, that didn't exist, that might have existed, that well, was done away with, which wasn't done away with. You know, all of the issues associated with that, and the sponsorship, and the close connection with the company who were supplying the tyres.
DFP's position on this, and as it says in the response, that is a position that they've reached, and they've looked at all the guidance that exists from Cabinet Office and elsewhere at the moment, is that DFP is always very clear: sponsorship should never be sought or accepted from firms where there are commercial negotiations underway. However, that's distinct from where you have an existing commercial relationship. In that situation, it's not appropriate to prevent individual firms from providing sponsorship purely on the basis that they have existing commercial relationship. We have existing commercial relationships with a vast number of firms locally. If you do that then in terms of sponsorship, and the firms co-sponsor with government for shared benefits, there's a perception of those firms that would be allowed would be advantaged.
Of course they are.
From those who are actual commercial providers. And that goes against the overriding principle that all firms should be given equal opportunities. And additionally, restricting the potential pool of sponsorship could increase the cost to be borne, and thus increase the cost to the public purse.
Well, if you don't mind.
Away you go.
I can sort of bear out what Fiona's saying this one, but I think we could change the recommendation in terms of, I think if you change the recommendation and such, put caution in terms of not, it shouldn't be encouraged, but there should be, I'm just trying to think as we go along, but so whilst we shouldn't be proactively looking for sponsorship, we should be putting measures in place to make sure that the department is protected. Do you know what I mean? If we can get formal words. So on one hand we're saying we shouldn't actually openly go out and look for it, but at the same time where we have to do it. So accepting what the department's saying, Fiona, where we do have to do it, there should be checks and balances to prevent any misgivings.
There are, the guidance that exists for seeking sponsorship is quite clear on those issues for departments.
Well, it actually hasn't worked, because I think that's why we are where we are in terms of this particular vehicle. So if we could get formal words in there where that guidance needs to be changed.
We have reviewed the guidance. We've reviewed our guidance against what's in Cabinet. It's still in line. I don't know that strengthening the guidance would improve compliance with it. That's compliance.
Well, it hasn't worked, so it's not
working. I still have concerns about this, Chair, because I'll tell you where I come from. I think if somebody has won a tender and then becomes a sponsor after they've won a tender, they are still putting themselves in an advantageous position, because that tender will never last it doesn't last forever. It should be retendered unless you're part of the Northern Health Group, where you just keep rotating the tenders. You know, they just seem to just keep self-fulfilling and just running on. So I'm saying it does encourage others within the organisation or the department to actually, well, look, all these people are looking after us in certain ways. I still think if you're going down a proper route of tender, you should be getting the right price, irrespective of whether they sponsor you or whether they don't. But if there's any interest that could be implied that they are getting it out of it, because it could be interpreted by anybody that, oh, we know who's sponsoring that, they're going to get that contract. It's why it's a key question whenever we're asked about the Lyric. When did they sponsor? When did they give their sponsorship to the Lyric, the contractor who won the contract? Did he give it before he got the contract? Did he give it after he got the contract? And has he tendered for other contracts within that department that he thinks that this might sweeten the deal for them? And I still think you're on a very, very, irrespective of whether cabinets think it's right, I still think it is a very, very grey area, and it's not as black and white as it should be. I think there should be clear water between it. If you're sponsoring something, you don't tender. And if you tender, you don't sponsor.
Adrian?
Yeah, down the same lines as Paul. I think there's no clear water here between the two, and the guidance, you might be hitting all the guidance out of the department, but it's the perspective it sends out to other people who would want to tender and all as well. And I don't think this is right at all. I think there should be more clear water between the two.
And Fiona, in terms, you mentioned Cabinet Office advice. The reason they didn't accept this was that what they currently do is in line with Cabinet Office advice. Is that right?
Yeah, what my department, what DFP currently does, and what the guidance that we currently have in place for situations of sponsorship, which aren't particularly frequent in the public sector in Northern Ireland, are clear. And we checked, in response to the committee's recommendation, we checked our guidance and our approaches with those of the Cabinet Office to make sure that we were still in line with what was the current best practice, and we are.
I think Paul and Adrian make a very valid point.
There should be total clear water.
I think it's the perception that's sending out, what message it sends out. If Paul said, if you're sponsoring something, well, then you shouldn't be fit to tender for it, or vice versa.
I think what you say it to, as Paul's pointed out, that Lyric thing, which makes it even look worse.
Exactly.
But I'm not even just talking about this contract. I'm saying if you were involved in something in a school and you were seen to be the person who was sponsoring something associated with that school, oh look, so-and-so wanting to do the maintenance here, by the way, he actually does give money into the school to run their PTA and do this, that and the other, it puts it in an awkward position.
Those sorts of conflicts of interest in setting up and deciding if something should be sponsored and then looking for sponsorships should all be addressed by that part of the public sector that is doing that at the time.
Should be.
They should be, yeah, and that's what the guidance requires them to do.
Doesn't work.
Yeah, the DFP's role is to develop and issue the guidance, not...
It's a bit like the payment structure. To find out the contracts, we put this in place, people getting paid within the 10 days that were set up. I'm just going to use this as an example. There's absolutely no doubt that people they're hitting their targets. When you hear the nightmare scenario of one contractor who finds he puts it in, the person who was supposed to assess it, it wasn't there to give him whether it was the QS to look at the job to see whether it should be paid, and he's off sick, so nobody looks at it for 6 months, but as soon as it hits the finance department, it gets paid within that time. Fact was that they put the invoice in, or had requested to be paid 6 months previous, and but it met the window because when it hit the finance department, that's the only time the clock started to tick, when it hit there, not whenever it actually was submitted by the developer or the contractor. And this is where I'm saying these things work perfect in practice. We're not actually following it all through. And that's a nightmare that I actually dealt with this week.
See, DFP advises that sponsorship being sought from firms while significant negotiation or commercial negotiations are going on. That's in line with the principle of this committee.
Yes.
I suppose, Fiona, in terms of, can the committee see existing guidance and what training has been provided to ensure officials are fully aware of that
Guidance is available on the DFP on the AFMD website, along with all the guidance that we produce, so it's publicly available.
What options are left here? What options have refused it? Chair, what options is left open to us here if the department is refusing to accept the recommendation? What can we do to make them?
I still think
What options?
we have a right to, it's public perception is a big issue here. And if there's a possibility that it looks like a duck, and everything else.
In terms of, well, as the committee knows, this is the agreed position of the two ministers involved, and any further questions need to be raised with the ministers. It's not, I can't change whether DFP accepts or doesn't accept.
I think we should.
Paul?
I think we should take it to the ministers, because I think it's something that has shown its head. It's been included in another report that there's a possibility that there's a conflict over sponsorship and how that could be deemed to have interfered with it, and how the wording of that contract and everything else. But I think if the guidelines from Cabinet are what we're working to, it doesn't mean they're always right. I still think we should be asking the two ministers and highlighting our concern to them, because overall they have overall responsibility, Minister of Finance and the Minister of the Department of Health, on this issue.
All the members happy with Paul's proposal? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Regarding recommendation number 11 there, Fiona, can you confirm that while not accepting this recommendation due to a particular set of circumstances on this occasion, the DFP accepts the principle behind the recommendation?
DHSSPS?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the DHSS acknowledges the committee's concerns regarding the apparent lack of action. They acknowledge the committee's concerns, but all their legal advice is that there is no further action and no effective actions that can be taken.
Any members' comments?
But it recognises that all future reviews should be professional, independent, properly supported by HR and legal expertise, and free from perception of conflict of interest. So it does accept the principles of the committee's recommendation.
How can you accept you're going to change things in the future if you don't accept it?
They can't change the situation with respect to the individual case that the committee was asking, that questions of further action against the senior officers was revisited. They're advising they cannot revisit that bit of it. Their legal advice is that it is not possible. But they accept that reviews should be professional, independent, properly supported, and free from perceptions of conflict of interest.
Any comments, anyone?
It's just on the word perception. What one person perceives and what another perceives are two different things.
The perception of conflict of interest was the committee's recommendation, that it be free from the perception of conflict of interest. So it was the committee that...
We include.
Michael?
Just curious, we had made a recommendation that they've accepted in principle, but not on the actuality of the individual event on the basis of a piece of legal advice or guidance that we haven't had sight of. If it wasn't for contrary views and legal opinions, there wouldn't be a justice system. I'm just wondering, can we get sight of the legal opinion that has so galvanised them to adopt this position?
Yeah.
Just curious.
Best thing you've said today, Michael.
It's the first thing he said.
That's the best thing you've said today.
If I was the only thing I've said today.
No, that's what I'm saying.
So you're proposing here to get
Look, the committee adopted a position, the committee made a recommendation, the department has differed with that in terms of the actuality of the specific of what we were asking, but accepted the principle. I can understand that. But they're doing so on the basis of a piece of legal advice that we have no sight of, nor can we take an opinion on.
But that is their minister's agreed opinion. So it is the view of the minister. The minister has accepted the response to this, their minister has approved the response to this recommendation. That is their ministerial response. So
Based on legal advice.
Right.
that is the ministerial review that has been agreed within their department. With
Based on their legal advice.
I assume I'm not party to how DSS.
Well, that's what it's saying there, based on legal advice.
DSS, they have advised that, yeah.
So,
So that is their minister's position on the basis in response to the
Can we get sight of
committee's.
the legal advice?
I have no idea. That's a matter to raise with the DHSSPS Minister if they consider it appropriate.
Fair enough, then we'll raise that with them too.
Okay.
Sure, we're going to get a cut back and might keep going.
Sorry, Chair, just an elaboration. I think in this particular case, the department is arguing that all the people where there's potential for disciplinary action were no longer in the employment of the fire service. That, of course, might raise another issue.
Criminality, but
Is, if this is the legal position, then there is a potential scenario where someone could be on potential disciplinary, but then given a severance payment as an alternative to avoid disciplinary. So I think there is an issue in this
It is.
somewhere.
there's criminality as well. Plus we're taking criminal action against them if they left their job.
Any comments, any members?
Seek legal advice, Chairman.
Seek legal advice. Okay, so
I think that's what you have to do, Trevor. I think you have to do that.
in terms of this MOR, do members feel it appropriate to request an update on it, say in a year's time? Yeah?
Yeah, that would be.
Okay, thank you. That takes us on to agenda item number 5, inquiry into the DCAP, management of major capital projects, the MOR. Does any member wish to declare an interest at this stage?
Very interested. Some people must have got free
Any more
tickets.
declare interest with it? The MOR can be found in your electronic pack, starting on page 31. If you want to take a few minutes to find it and so before we really proceed to look at we're going to look at these recommendations in order, but before we proceed to look at them, we'd like to your comment on the introductory paragraphs of the MOR, which refer to the committee's press release on the DCAL management of major capital projects report. That first paragraph there refers to the committee's press release. It states the committee was left with a strong impression that the outcome had been rigged and manipulated.
Where's this?
It's the first paragraph on page 5 of the report, yeah.
Well, that is an accurate reflection of what we believe to have been right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, right down to meetings being held and certain people not being present to actually oversee some of those decisions.
Tenders destroyed.
Yeah.
Changes made at certain times.
Well, that's
not right. I don't know what is.
I think that's inaccurate.
Huh?
Well, if you take the DCAL statement in the next paragraph, that it would wish to make clear that it's not aware of any evidence either in the press release or in the committee's report which supports the committee's assertion.
Well,
Do you want us to reissue a different statement and make it a wee bit beefier for
They
them?
mustn't have read the report, because if you read, I don't understand.
Well, see, Chairman, if I listen, if we go back to a certain radio interview, where did he get their assertion that he made? Because I think he surely suggested in some of his words, or that person at radio, was of the impression that we were suggesting things were right. No.
Yeah.
He's picked it up somewhere.
They're going on to say then in that last sentence, if the committee is aware of such evidence, then the department would respectfully ask that this information is made available to it so that an appropriate investigation can be made.
Maybe they want to come back and see us then. We could go through it again. I'm happy enough, like, if they want to come up again today.
I would endorse that.
Perhaps if I can clarify, Chair. The reason the department's asking this is because under the Public Contracts Regulation, if it is proven that the tender was rigged, it would be a breach of the regulations and the department would be liable to recover the funding given to the LIRIC. And therefore, given that the position of the Public Accounts Committee, which is obviously a body of record, is that it has the appearance of being rigged, it's therefore important to the department that it is seen to pursue the issue formally.
Chairman, the problem we have with this, and I mean, I think we're all big enough and old enough to know that we can't prove beyond reasonable doubt that it was rigged.
Yeah.
But if you look at the facts around the particular case where tenders were destroyed, if you've got a suspicious mind, you would wonder why anyone would destroy tenders. If you look at changing headline figures in terms of the contract, where you remove something and then their internal audit suggests that it was removed because there was a variation in the price, whenever that person was fifth place, but whenever they won the contract, they put it back in to the penny at the original price. Now, them things in my mind all gives the assertion that something has been rigged to get a particular outcome. And if they don't see that, then whoever is in decal in the head of that particular department, I really think shouldn't be in that particular role.
No, I was trying to clarify there. The Public Accounts Committee, which is a body of record, has made the assertion that it appears to be rigged and manipulated. The department has a responsibility as a statutory body to consider the risk of the fact that it is in breach of the public contracts regulations. It is therefore asking the committee to provide any evidence it has to support that suggestion. Otherwise, the department may find itself in a very difficult position if challenged, because the evidence will be that the PSC considered the matter rigged.
Chair, I don't think we should be in the process of trying to bail out any department or give a department cover by actually changing the wording of a report, which we genuinely believe, and it's if we can interpret it as that, they have the same evidence as we have. If they are looking for us to give them a get out of jail card free, I think they're barking up the wrong tree, because it is clear as the nose is on your face that this is wrong. They were wrong in the way they went about it. They were wrong in the whole process, and in trying to justify it, they actually have maybe made the matter even worse. So I think that by asking us to actually review the interpretation of that, if it means the department have to go and recover costs, that's not our problem.
Chair, the department's not asking the committee to review anything. It's merely asking if it has evidence that supports that position, that it provides it to the department, because the department doesn't believe that it has evidence to support that position. And that is merely a checking process, because if the department had evidence that supported that position, it would then take steps under the public contracts. So it's part of its audit trail as to whether or not it would take steps under the public contracts legislation. It's not asking the committee to reverse or any of its views.
I'll let Trevor in a moment. I'm just thinking, are we losing sight of the whole lot of this with this introductory paragraph? Because my understanding of an MOR is that the primary purpose is to respond to the committee's recommendations as stipulated by the DFP's guidance. And the inclusion of an introductory paragraph is permitted under exceptional circumstances. When you read this MOR, it's not clear if it fits. Is it exceptional circumstances?
It was my view as Treasury Officer of Accounts that there were exceptional circumstances because of the issue in relation to the Public Contracts Regulation. And it always remains a memorandum of reply is a ministerial level response, so it will always be at a minister's discretion if they wish to see an introductory paragraph presented.
Right, do you believe, Trevor?
Chairman, I think we could go around the houses in this one. I think if there's any ambiguity, then we need to bring the department back up and go through the aspects where we do believe that it was rigged and manipulated to get a particular outcome. And then whatever they do after that, that's their problem. Because see, if they had managed it right in the first place, we wouldn't have had a report on it.
Chair, it goes right back to the business case being made about the rebuilding of the facility and the costs that were presented, and then coming back for an increase. To hear that they went in on budget. Yes, the budget was moved partially the way through it, or probably the whole way through it. It was increased. So to say that that was the case, if the original business case hadn't have stacked up, we wouldn't have been in this position. Because I, for one, you know, there's a verse in the Bible and it says, what man goeth out to start to build a house without first working out where he can finish it? You know, and at the end of the day, they started a project and increased the cost by a sizable margin during it. And if they had not have got that business case to be approved by the department, they wouldn't have got the go-ahead to went and rebuild it. So right from the very start, there was a clear indication that they were trying to either, I know this is either board of the Lyric or whatever, or the Department of Culture, Arts and Leisure themselves. So somebody along the way said, we have to deliver this. Once they started, then, oh, you can't leave it without this, we're going to have to finish and get extra money to do it. I think the whole thing, if the department have to, I think Trevor's suggestion is right, and to include that at the front of it, we need to actually, I would want that to be removed from the front of this report and to ask them to remove their part of it. If they want to include our first paragraph, which I can stand over, I'm happy to debate with them about why they want to include the second paragraph and bring it forward, because the evidence is there. The evidence is there.
Yeah. And Michael, do you want to come in there?
I'm just curious about what, for the purposes that the decal is seeking, constitutes evidence.
Our report, not their report.
We based our entire committee findings largely on the report, and I would have thought the report should have been ringing alarm bells within the department. And it's my view that we formed an opinion, which could be demonstrated as an impression along the lines of what has been said. But the issue really is all of these material facts were known within decal, I would imagine, even before we started our report, and they didn't jump to those conclusions.
Yes.
So whose responsibility is it to investigate it? Is it decal's? Because they had all the information available to them and formed no such conclusion until it came through the audit office report, and that's what we reacted to. And I'm just curious about the evidential levels that are actually required. I know in the past, I think we unsuccessfully reported one thing to the police, but there is certainly something in that whole thing that does give, it twitches your nostrils.
Yeah, like, from the committee's point of view, it's not our job to prove wrongdoing, but it's certainly the job of the department to provide assurance and confidence in this assembly and the wider public that there's been no wrongdoing. So maybe your point, Trevor, is a very relevant point.
Yeah. Chairman, can I just ask, this report, does it belong to this committee? No, these are our committee reports. Yeah.
The memorandum of reply?
Yeah.
Memorandum of reply belongs to the Minister for Finance. Yes.
You know, I think the department, we have to get the message across somewhere or other to the department, the resolve of this PAC committee to hold public bodies to account.
Can I say
that memorandum has to be a mechanism for that.
Exactly. And Chair, I think by inclusion of that first or the second paragraph that they have included, decal wish to make it clear, by giving them that opportunity to come in and make it clear that they don't see that, I think that gives us grounds to bring them back and to ask for removal of that. If we can demonstrate to them, now obviously they have as much evidence as we have in this matter. They might well be more. There might well be more.
May you find them tenders that went missing?
The memorandum of reply is a document laid by the Minister for Finance, so any issues need to be directed to him in the first instance.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, the Minister of Finance, yeah.
Boys were in trouble today. Oh well.
Join the club.
Is everybody happy with that then?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to stand in the way of proper doing them what's
Yeah.
right.
What we're doing, yeah.
That's right.
Okay, so with regards to recommendation, recommendation 1 then, okay?
Okay, yeah, they accepted.
They've even accepted that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2.
Recommendation number 2. DCAL fully accepted the committee's recommendations, where DFP only partially accepted it, stating that DFP does not agree that all construction contracts should be awarded on a fixed price basis. How is it that the department can accept the recommendation and DFP cannot?
I can understand that one.
There's a quality issue.
Chairman, I think that's pretty clear. DFP, hopefully, I don't see the Kieran looking at us, but in terms of DFP and you go out, and once you make changes, how would you get a job finished if there's changes going along actually after the contract has started, when they've identified something that may not have been right in terms of the design?
Place.
So that means you actually go back to going to price again. So I can understand that one from DFP's point of view. And I'm not trying to roll back, but I think logically, if you think of that, even building your own house,
Yeah.
you price your own house, then you bring the electrician in, you want a few sockets here and a few there.
Yeah.
There is additions to that, so it's not a fixed price then. I could live with that one.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you, Paul?
Well, I actually think there's another. Appreciate the price has been the focus recently, but they went away from the issue of price and quality, and I think there is a clear indication that there should be a weighting towards a quality approved or quality standard as well. There should be a weighting in the scoring mechanism to ensure that you are getting quality as well, which has been demonstrated in some contracts that are now.
That still, Paul, would come up in your fixed price thing. It's down to the matrix now. The matrix is agreed.
That's right.
So if you have 60% in quality and 40 in price,
Well,
while sometimes the over quality stuff
be-
and not enough in price.
Well, there has to be some way of working and setting that level.
But that's not.
That's
Chair,
not
that's
this
not what this
about.
is saying.
I know
This
that's
is more
not.
in terms of where changes can be made.
Have to be made.
You know, so the matrix applies to everyone who tenders.
Yeah.
It's only whenever you're putting additions to a particular contract. But I say in terms of some of the matrices, they do maybe the price measures different.
I have to agree with that.
Okay. The next one,
Made that easy for Fiona. Actually. Made that bit easy for you.
number 3. Recommendation number 3, DFP.
Air to
accept-
breathe for a minute.
What number went now?
DFP accept 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Does DCAL actually say they're accepting it?
DCAL accepts them, yeah.
Yeah.
They're just saying they will look at how to engage relevant professional teams earlier in the process. I'm on recommendation 3.
Right past that, right? Not a 6.
Last line in number 3.
Yeah,
The decal are trying to regulate a bit there.
that's what I thought.
No, they're not trying, no, they're not. They're not. They accept the recommendation and they will look at how they can engage earlier in the process of the cost
They
estimate.
haven't actually said.
Yeah.
they
Can we
ex-
get a change of the wording there?
Oh, sorry.
Can we get,
By DFP accepting, that becomes part of the guidance, so therefore it is what DCAL has to follow.
Doesn't mean they accept it.
can we get the word accept in there, Fiona?
So if DCAL,
I can confirm for you separately that DCAL do accept the
If you can, yeah,
recommendation.
that's fine.
That's good.
okay.
Okay, Michael, yeah?
No,
Yeah, okay, right. Go on,
I
recommendation
believe
number 4.
Good.
They can accept.
And has adopted.
Recommendation number 5.
Yep.
Yeah, they accept. And 6,
Yep.
again. Recommendation number 7.
Could I have an explanation as to why DFP partially accept the
Yeah.
committee's recommendation?
It explains it now, if you read it on. It's
Sorry.
Sorry, it's the reason is in the final chapter
Yeah.
is because it's individual departments' responsibilities to monitor the compliance with the legislation in respect of public records
I have to agree with that.
and their disposal schedules. So it's not DFP's role to supervise that activity.
That's okay.
But we accept the importance of retaining public records and we will update
First paragraph.
the guidance to make sure that it's reinforced.
could I again ask Fiona what actually constitutes a public record? There's a document went missing regarding the tendering process for the Lyric, which was done without the CPD or whatever, with no one there. Is that a public record at that stage? And should it have been kept, or should those involved have been advised to keep it?
I can tell you what the definition of a public record is, whether or not I can't really interpret it for a specific record. The Public Records Act 1923 defines public records as all records of any court, government department, authority or office in Northern Ireland with respect to which the Parliament of Northern Ireland has the powers to make laws.
So the documents that are missing regarding the tendering process for the Lyric, for example, according to that, may not be public records?
Well,
That's another point.
you would probably argue that it does fall within the authority of the Assembly for Northern Ireland in terms of law, because it's part of the public funding mechanism. And there should have been a disposal schedule which identifies records when they cease to have any continuing administrative or legal value. So DFP's guidance is now setting out clearly, now requires departments clearly in their letters of office to reinforce the need for records to be maintained, and also will reiterate the need for the funding body to retain those records. So that's where we're tightening.
That's very
it up.
important.
And they didn't on that occasion so instruct, isn't that correct?
They failed on this occasion to keep those records.
That's why that recommendation's there.
Yeah.
Was it?
No, I just wanted, they failed to, the department failed to advise those who took the decision that they had to keep the records.
That's where the recommendation came up.
Yeah.
Fiona, in terms of DFP, do you believe that they should have some role to ensure that individual departments are, let's say, more rigorous in complying with recommendations? Is there
Well,
any,
the DFP doesn't consider it's appropriate for it to monitor compliance.
Couldn't speak with them.
Individual departments, we're all departments of statute, so we all are, responsible. DFP has clear responsibility in terms of the financial process and supporting that for the Assembly, but in terms of actually supervising and monitoring compliance of other departments with legislation, that's not part of its remit. Each department has its own responsibility.
okay. Okay, everybody happy enough then with 7?
Yeah.
Recommendation number 8?
Happy enough for that.
Everybody accepts recommendation number 8?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on the MOR?
Just so as we know exactly where we're going with this now, what is happening with in relation to the first paragraph? Are we going to ask the department to come and see it?
Yeah, on relation.
And we're dealing with two ministers in this matter, aren't we?
Well, I think
DFP.
the advice was that would need to write in the first instance to the DFP minister.
Correct.
Okay.
It's the Minister for Finance who has laid the MOR.
That's okay, that's all right.
I'm sure it's in the guidance of an officer, but there you are.
Okay, so, again, the members feel it's appropriate to request an update on this MOR a year from now. Yeah? An update, yeah?
Yes.
Fiona, thank you very much for coming
You're welcome.
today
That was
and
painful.
for answering our questions on those 2 MORs. What's us? Is that us, yeah?
That's where it should be. That's where it used to be.
Oh, wait, next week. Date and time of next meeting. That sounds good. Has anybody got any AOB?
No.
You're doing it very quick. Date, time and place of next meeting, 2 p.m. next Wednesday, 19th of February, room 29. Meeting's closed. Thank you.
This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Committee Room 29. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Committee Room 29. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Committee Room 29. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Committee Room 29. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Committee Room 29. This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Committee Room 20.